What's the difference between finding a buyer versus gathering bidders? There's a difference. In private sale campaigns, your job is to find the buyer, find interested buyers, negotiate them to their peak, and the highest offer will be the buyer, assuming that it meets the vendor's expectations. With an auction campaign, your job is to gather as many bidders as humanly possible, keep in constant communication with them to get them to the auction, bidding against each other in emotional competition to their peak, and the highest bidder will buy the property assuming it meets or surpasses the vendor's expectations. One of the biggest mistakes that agents make in auction campaigns is find an interested buyer, then start negotiating with them, taking that offer to the vendor. The vendor's not ready to accept it yet. They reject that offer. You let the buyer know their offer has been rejected. The buyer feels rejected. Then they also think that, hang on a second, I've just been negotiated to my peak. The offer's been rejected. I'm not going to go to the auction because I'm going to have to pay more than my peak. So I'm going to go buy another property. That's the danger of trying to find a buyer during the auction campaign as opposed to gathering bidders. Let me simplify this for you with a hypothetical. I really want you to feel the pain in the future of what this could cost your vendor to increase the chances of you not doing this, to increase the chances of you not or never negotiating with a buyer in the middle of an auction campaign. Say, for example, your vendor's after $1 million. And say, for example, there are 3 interested buyers. Say, for example, those buyers are talking numbers around $900,000. And you do all in your power to negotiate them higher because you feel as though they're not at the right level for the auction. So one buyer, you negotiate them from 900 to 930. One buyer, you negotiate them from 900 to 950. And another buyer, you negotiate them from $900,000 to $975,000. Your vendor says no to every single one of those offers because your vendors are at $1 million and they're not prepared to take those offers yet. They may be on auction day because, remember this, statistically speaking, more price feedback equals more price adjustments if required, which equals higher clearance rates. But you haven't even got to the auction yet. You're trying to do this too early. All those offers have been rejected, and those buyers are now thinking, hang on a second, if my highest offer has been rejected, I'm going to need to pay more at auction. I'm not willing to go higher. I'm going to search for another property. I'm disengaging from this property. And all of a sudden, you've lost yourself. Say, for example, 2 of those buyers. Let's say, for example, the 950 one still comes along to the auction and you've got a 1-bidder auction and you manage to get them from 950 to 960, for example. And your vendor really needs to sell because they've already bought elsewhere and they choose to sell for 960, painfully so, because they knew that they had a 970, 975 offer that's now disappeared. Not only have they sold for $10,000, $15,000 less than that highest offer that you shouldn't have pre-negotiated, not only have they sold for less, but they've also lost the opportunity for those 3 bidders to bid against each other. And in an example that I just described to you, it wouldn't surprise me if the bidding went over $1 million, or $1,010,000, or $1,020,000, or $1,030,000. They've potentially lost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 because you've chosen to try to find the buyer and not gather bidders. All you want to do is extract price feedback at levels that buyers see value, keep in touch with those buyers, follow the bidder score sheet, get them to the auction, bidding against each other, emotionally charged to their peak, and the buyer will reveal themselves.